Hello and welcome back to Drafted and Distilled. I'm your host, Billy. Just a regular sports fan that loves to give my opinions as well as have a drink to mark the occasion. Guys, this is so exciting. This is episode number 10 for us. And I want to welcome back all the regulars, all the supporters who have been with us since the beginning. I just can't say thank you enough. We say it every week. But just want to let you know that you guys mean a lot to us. And I also want to welcome anyone who's new to the program. Thanks for finding us. We're so glad to have you. Here at Drafted and Distilled, we pair sports and spirits in the best way possible. With good stories, honest opinions, and a drink in hand. Each week, we pour up a new spirit or cocktail, break down its flavor and character, and then dive into the biggest takes in sports with a mix of insight, energy, and easy humor. It's not too serious here, and guys, definitely not too polished. It's just real talk for fans who love the game and a good pour. So pull up a stool, everyone, regulars and any newcomers that we have this week, and let's get into it. The way Drafted and Distilled works is we like to kick things off with what's in the glass each week. And this week is kind of exciting. Today, our spirit is an old fashioned premix that I got in my Christmas stocking. So here it is. Here, let's move it into camera. Bulleit old premixed old fashioned cocktail. In my friend group, we like to do a lot of old fashions, and this one was given to me to try to see if we like it and to review it here on the podcast. So that's what we're going to do. This one is very interesting to me. I do love a good bourbon, and I do love orange. So this one seemed perfect for me. The moment I got it, I knew we would be trying it here on the podcast. So, again, excited to try this one with you guys. The way we do things around here is I don't know if you can hear, that's my dog barking at someone outside. Um, on the show, we like to head over to the product website and see what they have to say about their products, what to expect. We just like to know what we're getting ourselves into here. For Bulleit, this is part of their cocktail collection. This ready to serve cocktail was concocted with some of the most celebrated and creative bartenders to help us refine and perfect these recipes. The sweet oak, nutmeg, and light toffee notes of straight bourbon whiskey come together with orange bitters to form the perfect old fashioned. This cocktail was designed for you to spend less time making drinks and more time sharing them with your friends and family. Bulleit is rooted in cocktail culture, and this take on a classic was crafted to honor it. Now, I'm laughing just because my dog is going crazy upstairs, so that's it. This cocktail is best enjoyed straight up over ice and garnish as desired. Now, just an FYI, a little bit about Bulleit and bourbon. Bulleit is made with a mash of different grains, but in order to call itself bourbon, it has to be made with 51% corn. So that's what it is. We've talked about mashes and grains and how this works in episodes previous. So just a bit of information to continue that conversation. So what Bulleit is saying about their product. So the aroma, sweet oak, nutmeg, and light toffee notes of straight bourbon whiskey. The taste, tones of maple, oak, and nutmeg, sorry. And the finish is long, dry, and satiny with a light toffee flavor. So, on the show, those of you who are regulars know, on the show we always like to smell what we're about to drink. So let's have a smell here. Now I've made an old fashioned with an orange peel, um, and I'm I'm definitely getting that, but I'm not really getting any of the notes from the premix. All I'm getting is whiskey or bourbon. Yeah, I'm not getting any other notes besides just straight bourbon. My fear is that's just going to be just a shot of bourbon. So, cheers here and let's try it. Whoa. Whoa. Yeah, that has no flavor profile. That is literally just a shot of bourbon, guys. Which was my fear in smelling it. Um yeah, that just tastes like bourbon, which is not a problem per se, but yeah, that is not an old fashioned that has layers and bitters and water, sugar, all of those things. That literally is just one shot of bourbon. And I do like Bulleit bourbon, but that I don't like. So I normally mix here at Drafted Distilled. We normally mix with Coke or Pepsi, and we will be doing that to see if it's better. Um, we wanted to try the old fashioned way because of what it says there. Um, Here at Drafted and Distilled, when we like a spirit, we always say tastes like more. I would say that does not taste like more. It might be good if you just mix it, like I said, but no, that isn't an old fashioned cocktail. That's just a shot of bourbon. Of course, every drink is not for every person, of course. These are just my impressions. I'd love for you guys to try it and see what you think. My reaction here was because it's not really what I was expecting, but you guys might like it. So now that we've had our cocktail, now that we've figured out what's in the glass and what we like and what we don't like, now we go into our take for the week, our sports take for the week, I should say. And today we are going to be getting back into college football. The quarterfinals for the college football playoff this week, pardon me, were played on December 31st and January 1st. And I wanted to just go over them and talk about the games and my impressions. I watched all of them because when this episode airs, the games play Friday and Saturday coming up of this week. I'm recording on Thursday, mind you. But I did want to get into them. Some really good games, some really unexpected results. Let's get into them. The first game we're going to go over is Oregon versus Texas Tech, and Oregon won that game 23-0. I'm originally from the state of Texas. I am a Texan through and through, and this was not the result that I expected. On the show, we have talked that I cannot root for A&M as a Texas team because I root for the University of Texas Longhorns and they're a heated rival. But I do like Texas Tech, and I thought what they were doing was fantastic this year. They had the bye in the first round. Oregon had to play in the first round. And I thought that having the bye set them up for quite a lot of success. I thought they would win this game against Oregon and vault themselves in the discussion for national championship. If they won the game, they would have had to play Indiana, and that would have been a tall task, of course. And we'll talk about Indiana later in this section here. I thought the opposite was going to happen here. Uh, then the game got played, and it went about as bad for Texas Tech as it could have. Oregon's defense was stifling, and Tech didn't play very well. They were very sloppy with the football. They had 4 turnovers. Tech quarterback Bayron Morton threw 2 interceptions and lost another fumble. And if you've been watching football at all, that's a recipe for disaster. That is definitely not a recipe for winning football. It really seemed to me watching the game that he had overhyped himself and that the stage was just too bright for him. He is the leader of the football team as the quarterback, and he definitely did not play that way. Oregon's offense was okay. They didn't really do anything to light it up. One of Oregon's touchdowns was on a pick six, and I just Oregon didn't really impress us with their offense, but their defense was so good they didn't really need to. So it was the defense that really shone bright in the game and kept Tech from even getting a field goal. And like I said, this one went about as bad as it could have for Texas Tech. And good luck to Oregon because now they'll be moving on. The next game that we're going to talk about is Alabama versus Indiana. Indiana won 38-3. Indiana was the number 1 team in the country, and Alabama did have 3 losses. But they deserve to be in the college football playoff. This was a really fantastic game if you didn't root for Alabama. Alabama lost their quarterback, really their leader on offense, in the first half with a cracked rib, which can really derail a team, obviously. And that didn't make the uphill battle any better for them. But to me, it was the better team coming out on top. And proving that to all the naysayers that Indiana beating Ohio State in the conference championship was not a fluke. Fernando Mendoza, the starting quarterback for Indiana, was really fun to watch. Pardon me. That drink is biting me back here. He proved that he is the leader of that team, Fernando Mendoza, of course, I'm talking about. And when it mattered, when Indiana needed him, he was there. He didn't have flashy stats by any stretch of the imagination, but over and over again in the game, if you watched it, they needed a first down or they needed to have a long drive. He just took over the game and said, "Don't worry, guys, I got you." And I think he will be the number 1 pick. It's really looking like he's going to be the number 1 pick to the Raiders, but I mean, we'll talk about all of that in a different episode. I thought Alabama had a chance here before the game started, but Indiana proved that they're the best team in the country and will be very difficult to beat moving forward. I At this point, I can't see them not making the national championship, but we'll preview the games, and we'll get into those at another time, of course. The next game that I want to talk about was Ole Miss versus Georgia, and Ole Miss won 39-34. Guys, this was the game of the weekend. If you watched this game, this one was exciting. It came down right to the wire. There was a little bit of controversy at the end. This was why we get excited about the college football playoff. This game here. This is a conference game. They're both in the same conference. And this one had it all. So the expectation before this game was that Georgia was going to win, and was going to play Ohio State in a bit of a clash of the Titans. That did not happen. Nobody seemed to tell Ole Miss that they were supposed to lose. This game had all parts of an instant classic. Both teams refused to quit. Both teams just kept coming no matter what was thrown at them. It went right down to the wire, like I said, and was back and forth all game long and was so exciting to watch. Trinidad Chambliss, the Ole Miss quarterback, was sensational. He came last year from a very small school and won a championship, and came to Ole Miss, was supposed to be the backup. The starter got hurt, and he really just flourished as their quarterback. And the Ole Miss coach was really sensational. Now, if you've heard of what's happening in college football over the last month, um, Lane Kiffin was the coach of Ole Miss, and he left to take a different job, which is no big deal. But he left in the middle of the night, and he left on really terrible circumstances. He wanted to coach in the playoff games for Ole Miss, even though he's the coach at another school, and the Ole Miss people who run the school told him to go to hell. And the breakup was very bad. Some of his assistants are still coaching, even though they work officially for LSU. And the coach, and I don't have his name here, so my apologies for that, but the coach there had a really uphill battle. He had an 11-1 school fighting for the playoffs, and their coach left them. I have been so impressed by him. He's won 2 playoff games now as the coach of Ole Miss, and he just beat one of the best teams in the country, coached by, my opinion, the best coach in the country in Kirby Smart. And he's kept this team together, and he's kept this team fighting, and he's kept this team playing at an absolute high level. And to me, that's just so impressive, doing what he's doing under the circumstances that he's doing it. And that's what made this football game so fun to watch. One of the reasons, I should say. Kirby Smart is a tactician and a brilliant coach. The coach of Ole Miss was able to keep up with him and go strike for strike and maneuver for maneuver with Kirby Smart. Completely 100% impressed by him. Sorry, I don't have his name. And this game, right at the end, there was 1 second left. It took 20 minutes to play that 1 second. And this is an instant classic. I highly recommend, if you guys get a chance to watch a football game, if you're interested in watching a football game, this one is the one that you should watch. Ole Miss versus Georgia in the quarterfinals of the College Football Playoff 2025. The next game we're going to go to, and certain guy, you don't know him, picked Ohio State to win the whole national championship. Thought Ohio State was the best team in college football, and said so on his podcast. Again, you don't know this guy. Miami versus Ohio State. Miami won 24-14. Like I said, this one hurts quite a bit, to be honest. Um, I thought that this was a formality and that Ohio State, Georgia was happening next week. Boy, was I wrong. I bought into the hype of Ohio State, I guess, and picked the wrong team. But really, hats off to Miami. They knew in their locker room and within their staffs and within all their players that they had this ability and they had the belief that they could win. Julian saying of Ohio State, he's the quarterback. He had a great game. Threw 2 interceptions, again, one of them going back for a touchdown. And then Ohio State just could not overcome the deficit of that. Again, a little history. So Carson Beck, the quarterback of Miami, he played at Georgia the last 3 years, I think, or 2 years. And he had played in the big stage, big spotlight games that Miami is now finding themselves in. And he was everything that they hoped for. He was that experienced leader that they needed when they brought him in this year. I'm speaking of Miami. He had played, like I said, in many playoff games with Georgia and looked the part. He was calm. He was collected. He did enough for their team to win. And this one is going to be, this team is going to be a team that is going to be very difficult to knock out. I think that they can win against Ole Miss. That's who they play. And we'll get into all the games here in just one second. But I will be rooting for Ole Miss because I really want them to win a championship and rub it in Lane Kiffin's face, like we talked about. So moving forward, Oregon will be playing Indiana, and Ole Miss plays Miami. I'm hesitant to make predictions because I was so wrong before, but I have Indiana beating Oregon, and I have Ole Miss beating Miami to play for the national championship. This is why we play the games, folks. This is why we do this. So who knows what's going to happen, and we'll talk about it in a future episode. So that's my take for the week. You may agree, you may disagree, you may have an opinion, and that is awesome. A big part of the reason we do the show is because of you guys. We want to hear what you have to say. We want you to be respectful, and we want you to keep it light, but let us know what you think. And you can reach us on all the socials. We'll go over that here in just a second. We like to preview what's coming next here on Drafted and Distilled next week. And we're going to be actually jumping in, and we'll talk more about this, to something that I haven't drank in probably 20 years. Something I used to drink all the time, had a bad experience, and swore off on it. But we're going to try it again, and that is Southern Comfort. I'm going to be trying it, see if it brings back any bad memories, and what you guys think of it. On the sports side of things, we are going to be talking about the NFL playoffs. Wildcard weekend is also this weekend. So there's going to be lots of games being played. Who's playing who's playing the team that has the bye. All things NFL for next week's episode. Like I said before, guys, we want to hear from you. We want to hear what you have to say, your take on my take, we like to say. And you can find me on the following social media platforms: Instagram at Drafted and Distilled, Drafted_Distilled, on X, Draft and Distill, Facebook at Drafted and Distilled, and YouTube at Drafted and Distilled, plus all the places that you find your podcasts. Guys, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow on these platforms. I don't like doing the service announcement where we say like, subscribe all the time, but it does help us out. And it lets us know what we're doing is something that you guys are into and that you like. So be sure to go and let us know on these platforms. As always, guys, I'm Billy. I'm your host here at Drafted and Distilled. Thank you a million times over for all the support. Until next time, stay smooth, stay spirited. I'll see you guys next round. Have a great day.